The real interesting thing with Tyler Robinson, that shot he made was crazy. And people say, yo, Tyler just got lucky with that shot. No, bitch, he made his own luck. He was the one who made the shot. He's like Walter White. Walter White and Tyler Robinson both made their own luck. They did get a little lucky in some ways, but they were just in situations they clearly put themselves in. They knew it was on the line. They took the risk and played the game, and it worked out perfectly. So when I was a kid, my parents got divorced, which I guess that happens to a lot of people who end up dysfunctional on the internet. But the thing that really affected me was when my mother started dating a bunch of different dudes that were different religions. So I ended up trying out those different religions like they were fucking blue jeans at Old Navy. Like my mom had me going to black churches where I was the only white kid there. And it was really weird because those services are like 3 hours long and it's 99% singing. And I have even been to some Jewish temples with that shit where they had the Star David in the window. I was so out of my element there and I was only 9 years old. Craziest thing, that was when I learned about those little Jew hats. I forget what they're called, but that was the first time I ever saw people wearing them. Obviously, they were Jews wearing them. Not just any people, they were Jewish people. Important distinction to make. Okay, I have a confession to make. I got kicked out of the IDF, and it wasn't because I was refusing to kill babies either. They found out that I was going on the dark web and buying sheets and sheets of N-bomb, and then taking tent strips and wrapping them in aluminum foil. I had about 20 or 30 different tent strips wrapped in aluminum foil, and then I was driving around in my car, just tossing those shits out the window, causing chaos. I did it around like a 20-mile region. I saw news reports about it the next day. They were local, but I saw them. Yeah, the great thing about YouTube is you can confess to crimes that are like 95% true, but you just gotta change a few details, like saying it happened in like Israel, make it a joke, and then change a other slight detail that I won't say what it was so I won't get incriminated, and I can just call this whole thing off as a joke either way, so it's like a tax write-off but for crime. Where the energy drinks these days are so good. I swear, even like 7 years ago, energy drinks were not very good. But they started to figure out how to actually make them tasty. C4 makes the best energy drinks on the planet. Ghost is number 2. Everything else, I can do without. Monster Energy, I can do without. But I know a dude who was using workout powder, that shit that's got a lot of caffeine in it, and he was building up a tolerance over it to the point that he was ingesting 1,200 milligrams of caffeine in a single serving, and it was barely doing anything to him. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen, and we finally got him to take a bit of a tolerance break, and he was feeding for a whole week. It was the craziest thing. It wasn't anything like no Xanax withdrawal, but it was almost as bad as like minor alcoholic withdrawal. Like if it was like my uncle tried quitting alcohol, he'd be dead in a week. But if it was my cousin who tried quitting alcohol, he'd be around his ornery and maybe a little bit cold, sick in the head, you know, that sort of thing. That's what not having caffeine does to you whenever you get hooked onto the stuff. It's crazy. Does anybody want to hear a song parody? Alright, 3, 2, 1. So here's to you, Mr. Robinson. You killed Kirk for your trans girlfriend. Hey, hey, hey. God bless you, please, Mr. Robinson. I hope that you don't get raped. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Weird Al, count your fucking days because the new song parodist has arrived. And that was topical too, I mean. It's not like Kirk got killed yesterday, but that was still pretty recent. It was less than a year ago, and it's not like we're going to be talking about this at all in 20 years' time. It's just going to be something that people who were on the internet back then remembered and, you know, joked about. The normies who didn't know about Kirk really before the incident and who kind of just barely knew him because he associated with Trump, they are not going to remember him in 20 years. The only people who are really going to remember Kirk are like the 1% of people who were conservatives on the internet when they were in high school who actually liked him, and then the rest is going to be people who were making fun of him when he died, which I was participating in. I remember I was cracking Kirk jokes the day of. When I even heard about that shit, I was thinking, should I be making Kirk jokes or not? And I was like, oh wait, this guy was an asshole. I don't really care. I know a dude who was using workout powder, that shit that's got a lot of caffeine in it, and he was building up a tolerance over it to the point that he was ingesting 1,200 milligrams of caffeine in a single serving, and it was barely doing anything to him. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen, and we finally got him to take a bit of a tolerance break, and he was feeding for a whole week. It was the craziest thing. It wasn't anything like no Xanax withdrawal, but it was almost as bad as like minor alcoholic withdrawal. Like if it was like my uncle tried quitting alcohol, he'd be dead in a week. But if it was my cousin who tried quitting alcohol, he'd be around his ornery and maybe a little bit cold, sick in the head, that sort of thing. That's what not having caffeine does to you whenever you get hooked onto the stuff. It's crazy. Bro, the one thing that nobody brings up whenever we talk about the incident PewDiePie had on that bridge in PUBG when he said the N-word, yeah, English was not his first language. It was his second language, so he really meant that shit. And that permanently tarnished his reputation too, which I think is fair. Like, people do still like and respect PewDiePie, but you can't really bring up PewDiePie without somebody cracking a joke about how he said a little intolerable word over a freaking game of PUBG. I mean, dude, get a grip. It's PUBG. And he actually seemed genuinely butthurt in the clip too. Even after he said it, he seemed like he was still more mad that he lost the game than the fact that he had said the N-word. He didn't even seem that perturbed about it. He was just like, oh, I'm sorry, because I'm PewDiePie and I sound like I'm an idiot because I come from foreign country where we have funny voices. Yeah, if you want to hear jokes about black people and Jews, you gotta put up with white people jokes, because we do everybody around here. You better not be sticking around just for the black people jokes, because I'm gonna have to teach you a history lesson about Emmett Till. Yeah, you won't be laughing once you hear about that if you somehow don't know about that. There's this really funny meme on TikTok, or it's not really a meme, it's just like a trend that girls are doing wherever. So it'll start with the friend who has the smallest breast, and then the caption says like extra small, and then it goes through the friend group as the girl's breasts get bigger. It is so funny because this is messed up. Like high school girls will be like posting themselves doing the clip and then saying in the comments like, just so you guys know, we're in high school. Like, obviously dudes shouldn't be saying creepy stuff in the comments, but the fact that they didn't really have the foresight to see that jumping up in the air while flaunting your breasts would be seen as sexual. Like, do Floyds actually just not think sometimes? But one thing that I'm always going to give the show Clarence credit for is they have an actual lesbian representation where it's not just like two women who look normal, just like your average woman. Like, there's clearly the one who's supposed to be the dude, and then there's the one who's the woman. And you can see that the one who's supposed to be the dude is the one who's obviously related to Jeff, and that other woman is not. Like, they didn't have to put that level of attention in. Yeah, Steven Universe gets all this credit, but that was just two girl gems. Like, that was just like putting breast and girl hair onto a stone and then calling that lesbians. That's not like real lesbianism. Now, actually, that was a bit of a joke because I really had a thing for Pearl when I was younger. Like, I really am attracted, or not still attracted. That'd be weird. I'm definitely not attracted to girls who kind of look like Pearl, but just like a human form. That would be weird to be attracted to Pearl. And I definitely, this is 100% serious. I'm pretty sure I jerked off to porn of her like more than once. Definitely not 3 times, but more than once. It was probably twice. So twice. More than once, but less than 3 times. That could have only been twice. What was I saying there? Okay, so one of my hot takes about the government is I actually think that it's good that we have a bunch of really old people in the government that are like 80 years old, because I really don't want a president in 20 years that was cracking George Floyd jokes when he was in high school. I want some like 80-year-old geriatric man who can only really focus on just the fact that his back is in pain, so he has to take morphine every day, and then he's off the morpho while voting on some of the most important bills and laws of our time. Bro, I love to make fun of people who get paranoid easily, but I remember I saw like a green Mini Cooper pass my crib 3 times over the span of like an hour, and I genuinely thought I was being gang stalked and I almost called the cops. It was a bad situation. Yeah, and the weirdest thing about it was like 2 of the times the Mini Cooper was just completely green, and then the middle time, the second time, there was a white stripe on it. So where the hell did that white stripe come from? And then why the hell did it come off over the span of 15 minutes? It just does not make sense. And now the cops, I made a police report, but they were not taking it seriously. I could just tell. They were acting like they believed me, but I could tell that they were making fun of me. Bro, Sonic the Hedgehog may be the most warped video game of all time. Like, I don't get how you could possibly be a fan of a series that is primarily a video game if you have never played any of the games in the series. That does not make sense to me. I think if you want to be speaking about Sonic the Hedgehog in any kind of public forum, you need to have at least played 3 games, and you need to have played 2 of them to completion. One of them you don't have to finish, and I think that's a pretty fair requirement. Like, I was being so generous there. I didn't even mention you had to at least be playing 3 in Knuckles or Sonic Adventure 2. One of the games had to at least be those 3. But I really didn't say that, so guess what? You don't have to play those. I'm being generous. You don't have to do all this work to be a Sonic fan. You just gotta play the 3 classic games that are really short. They only take like an hour. So that's 3 hours of your time, and you'll actually know what the hell you're talking about, and you won't be a complete LARPing tourist. It really bugs me whenever Vietnamese people will try and say that they won the war. It's like, okay, maybe you barely won the war, but that was just because y'all were complaining so much about the napalm that we had to nerf it. The United Nations stepped in and patched the game, and then y'all had that really overpowered tree tech just because we were playing on your servers, because our internet was way better than yours, but we had to play on your servers. That wasn't fair for the United States. You know, whenever you have a sex slave tied up in your basement and she tries giving herself an infection because she thinks that once she's like diseased and rotten, maybe you'll let her free? As if. I wouldn't junk her Mercedes just because it had a broken spring, would you? I don't think so. Yeah, and also the one thing they don't tell you about having sex slaves is you actually do let one of them free and just say to them, hey, never tell anyone you were down here. But they'll usually do it. You just gotta threaten. It's like, listen, if you tell anyone, I'll kill you. Just all you gotta do, and you never tell. They'll just spin some story about how they were just like, had no idea what was going on for the last 6 months. It's really quite simple. Yeah, it really annoyed me whenever Charlie Kirk died, and the same conservative dudes that whenever a white girl gets murdered by a black dude on a subway, they're saying, yeah, that's what happens whenever you don't turn your head around like a crazy person every 5 seconds whenever you're within 500 yards of a black person. Yeah, those same people that were saying that, like every time some white chick gets murdered by a black dude, they were the ones flipping out that people dared to make a joke about Charlie Kirk getting shot by a dude who had a transgender girlfriend. Is that not one of the craziest things to ever happen? Is the real interesting thing with Tyler Robinson, that shot he made was crazy. And people say, yo, Tyler just got lucky with that shot. No, bitch, he made his own luck. He was the one who made the shot. He's like Walter White. Walter White and Tyler Robinson both made their own luck. They did get a little lucky in some ways, but they were just in situations they clearly put themselves in. They knew what was on the line. They took the risk and played the game, and it worked out perfectly. I mean, did he get caught? Yes, but that was only because he dumped the gun in the woods and it took him way too long to get it back. He should have never left that gun in the woods that was right next to the fucking college. That was legit one of the most boneheaded things that I ever freaking heard. And if you haven't seen the Charlie Kirk video on Turkey Dom's channel, he has a video where he got some exclusive Discord logs from someone who is best friends and roommates with Tyler Robinson and the transgender person. And he got like exclusive info on that. It was crazy. Like, that's the one thing I'll give Turkey Tom. I'm so glad he made that video because that shit was crazy. You find out that, so Tyler was taking care of his transgender girlfriend while she was having like mental breakdowns and going nonverbal for weeks at a time. And she was making like crazy experiments with wires and shit and plugging wires into water. And the whole house was filled with garbage and weird experiments like that. Craziest thing I ever heard. Like, that made me feel a little bad for Tyler. I actually thought, it's like, so this guy, he's an excellent shot, but we somehow didn't have this guy in the military when he turned 18. Bro, he could have been helping us in the IDF. I mean, come on, we would have won that war against Hamas. We would have killed every Hamas member if we had Tyler Robinson with us. He would have been on a rooftop making those same shots he got Kirk with, just on those Palestinians. I mean, come on.